Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. I'm your host Mike, and today we have got Mark Bravery, and we are going to talk about the draw with Walsall and the visit of Harrogate on Tuesday night. Hopefully I've sorted out my microphone, but it seems to have presented another problem where I seem to be going really glitchy of the screen. So enjoy the special effects, anyone watching on YouTube. I hope it's not too terrible, but I have no idea what's going on. I've unplugged it all. Who knows? It's always exciting. Your engagement is always important. Please enjoy the discussion and join in the discussion. Stay connected. Thank you to everyone for putting their comments and everything. And thank you to, I should have said this last week actually, gentleman or someone on YouTube, I assume it's gentleman, I don't know, GEU79, who says they always listen and enjoy and watch on YouTube. So thank you very much, because I think I made a comment about people liking it without even listening to it. So they made a comment that they do listen, which proves it. So thank you very much. Going to jump, Mark, it was way back in 2023 we last spoke.
Yeah, that would have been last year. Yeah.
The last one of the year. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been pretty good, thank you. Yeah, I've been. I didn't get to Mansfield, but I've been to the other away games recently, had a good time up in the West Midlands. Got through a few hostelries. Over a couple of days. Yeah.
You went on the other weekend at Mansfield. You went somewhere else, did you? I can't remember now.
For Mansfield, I was just doing some other stuff. I decided not to do that one some time ago. I'm being a little bit selective about away games second half of the season, but I'll still get to most of them.
Yeah. Well, club news. New manager bounce did not happen for the ladies' side, which, I suppose you could say it did, because they've lost like 6-0, 8-0, all sorts of things. They lost 3-1 today to the league leaders. I think first half they were 2-0 down, then second half they lost 3-1. So there's positive signs. Lots to learn. Obviously, Lucy's only been with them, I think, one training session where she just about met them. Other news on the ladies' side, or ladies' section, Lily made her Women's Super League debut for Brighton yesterday, I think it was. So Lily, who used to play for us and has been with us since under 10s or 9s or something, I think, has come all the way through, and she's now playing Women's Super League. Didn't know at the time, I was just taking the mick out of her, but she's the one who features in my sort of title sequence where I'm talking to one of the players after the match. It's Lily, so clearly I can pick them out. And we'll probably get onto this later, but just in case I forget, which is highly likely, don't forget on Tuesday night we have access to the away end. So if anyone hasn't been down there yet and wants to try out the sort of away end and potentially give feedback and put a little bit of not pressure, but some suggestion of, yes, we would quite like to have that to make a lot of noise, please give it a try out and give the feedback what you think about it. And that was it, all I had really. There probably is loads more, but that's all I've written down. So we're going to crack on with the match. It's just Mark today. So as I said, there's a big question mark against Dan's name, and the reason was he wasn't sure whether he was doing it or not, and he didn't. So that's why. But so going into this match, considering we had beaten them so comprehensively earlier in the season. Did that give any sense of worry or confidence? And then I know you weren't there, but did the Mansfield game performance result improve any confidence? Or sort of what were your feelings sort of heading into this match, Mark?
I didn't think the 4-0 back in October had much, if any, bearing on yesterday's match. There's obviously been a change of manager at our end since then, different sort of complexion to the team, and it's very rare for teams in a fairly even division as League Two arguably is to comprehensively beat any other team twice in one season. So it was never likely we were going to go up to Walsall and win 4-0. But I think the Mansfield performance and result did give the whole side a bit more confidence. Obviously, that was a very good away point against one of the high-flying sides in the division who'd beaten us at our place just a few weeks earlier. So I think that was all to the good, and I think you could see that in the way the team performed yesterday.
Yeah, and again, sort of two other sort of contrasting points of view. They've been fairly inconsistent, but our away record, particularly since I think we played them away last time, has not been that impressive at all. So again, they were both sort of factors in it, or again, does that all get kind of swept aside with it's all changed now?
I think it, to a large extent, it does. I mean, I think it's early days, of course, so you don't want to leap to any premature judgments, but the early indications are that the team is more resilient under Steve Morison. I think there's a slightly sort of more positive mentality among the players, and I think the whole team looks to be more of a battling unit than it was, a few weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely. And the whole lineup thing, it's all very difficult now. There's lots of changes. So the lineup has us guessing as well, because we're kind of all sitting there going, is that a 4-4-2? Is that 5-4? We don't really know, especially when some of the players can play in multiple positions. And there were debuts for Duke McKenna and Moore. Were you sort of feeling confident at the lineup? Were you a little bit worried about two debuts, especially Moore, who's come up a couple divisions?
Yeah, I mean, I was fairly confident that Steve Morison would have confidence in the players he picked. That's the kind of vibe he gives out. So I wasn't worried. There were a few slight surprises in that starting 11, as you say. The two Guyana internationals both made their debuts, one on the left wing, that was Duke McKenna, and one on the right, that was Moore. Also, Steve had indicated that both Ben and Omar, who picked up knocks at Mansfield, would be fit to start at Walsall. In fact, Ben wasn't even in the squad, and Steve later confirmed he still wasn't fully fit. And Omar was on the bench until the last 2 minutes of stoppage time, right at the end. I think we had a free kick then in the Walsall half, and perhaps remembering that goal that he got at Colchester at the death, he was brought on, but this time to no avail. So that was another perhaps slight surprise, but Louis and Joe at centre-back did a good job between them. There was no Nino, who had a very good debut, I understand, at Mansfield, very impressive. He was on the bench, didn't come on at all. Sam Hart played in his place. Perhaps Sam realises that he's got a bit more competition for that position now, and he played a blinder, possibly his best game ever in a Sutton shirt. So a few surprises, but my impression with Steve is that if he thinks a player is good enough to perform at this level, he's no qualms about throwing that player into the deep end. I've signed these players. I believe they're good enough for this team, this battle, this division. I'll just start with them. It's up to them then to show that my confidence in them was justified, and by and large, it was.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Stephen Duke McKenna was when we signed him, well, we as fans were saying, "Oh, he's another centre midfield." And then someone said, "Oh, we can play on the right," and we're like, oh, "Okay, so you can play on the right centre mid," and then he lines up on the left. He's like, "Okay, lovely. Let's just say we know nothing about this guy." But into the game, I mean, Louis got a booking very early. I think it was in the first 10 minutes. Always a worry. Were you kind of nervous at that point, or I didn't look up the ref stats, but I did hear afterwards that he does like dishing out the cards. And apparently it was an enormous card as well. But were you worried, or were you confident that Louis an old wise head?
I think one of your defenders gets a yellow card early in the game. You know, you're always a little bit apprehensive. He's one rash tackle away from being off the pitch and it's down to 10 men. But yeah, you're right. Louis is an experienced player. You know, he understood the implications of that yellow card, and he didn't get himself into any further bother during the rest of the match. And Steve kept him on. So Steve was sort of effectively saying, "Yeah, I've got confidence in you to see this game out and stay on the pitch," and that's what happened. And I think after 5 minutes or so, I think I'd more or less forgotten he was on that yellow card. He was just absorbed in the game, and that wasn't really preying on my mind, and I suspect nobody else's.
Okay, I mean, we had a kind of good spell, and you're like, oh, okay, you know what, this is quite good, and then. I think it's their centre back had an absolutely amazing goal. I mean, it's one of those that you can't just go, "Oh, that's terrible," but it's like, all right, fair enough, you can have that one.
I gather it was his first ever goal that he'd scored, certainly at home, and it was a goal that any centre forward would have been proud of. He just ran along the edge of our box, skipped past two defenders, and he just had a very, very narrow window, a second or so, to get his shot away. He just delivered it perfectly into the top corner. So, you have to give credit to that. It was a great goal.
There's not a lot you can do, is there? You can't just go, "Oh, that was unlucky, we could have done this." But unlike recent times, we didn't give a second goal, third goal, fourth goal. We showed the resilience that was missing. Coincidence or a mitigating factor? It was Eastie that was there, and he scored the goal. Did you feel it was coming, or did you feel there was a collapse likely?
No, I didn't think either of those. I mean, there didn't seem to be very much on. I mean, they'd gone ahead. 5 minutes later, we had a throw in at their end. It might have been Ryan Jackson. I can't quite remember. The ball came in. There didn't seem to be very much on. I mean, the ball was sort of ping-ponging around in their area. And I think somebody had a shot that was blocked. And then the ball just fell to Eastie just outside on the edge of the area. And they just thought, well, I'll have a crack. And the ball, I think, took a bit of a deflection. I'm not sure who it was off, but that may have wrong-footed the keeper. But, the old adage is if you don't shoot, you don't score. And he had a go, and we were level.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely one thing we've been saying for a while, is why don't we take shots and just see what happens? We've already had that since Ali left us. But we had several other chances. I think, I can't remember the order it was in, but we had Lee robbing the keeper, nearly scoring, which I think would have been 3 and 3 for him. Or I think so. I'm not sure. 3 and 4. And Charlie Lakin had another good chance. There were some other good crosses. So, although yes, their chances we could have scored, and it's not just that, but they were keeping Walsall honest. They couldn't then gamble going forward, going, well, we're going to peg Sutton back because they're not offering anything. They had to watch what we were doing. Were you feeling a second was on the cards, or were you just?
I think it was a very even game. I think you could argue we perhaps marginally edged it, but we were giving them some problems. I mean, McKenna, we've already mentioned. He was really lively on the left wing, having lots of the ball and giving them something to worry about. And what I noticed, what I haven't been noticing much this season, is we were picking up a lot of loose balls in midfield. And if you do that, it gives you two advantages. You can set up an attack, and you're taking the pressure off your defence. I think what was happening probably too often earlier in the season, we were losing the ball too often in midfield. It was coming straight back at our defence, and there's only so much pressure that any defence could absorb, and eventually, you know, we started conceding goals, and that wasn't happening. Apart from that one goal that we've mentioned, that wasn't happening. We were keeping them at bay for most of the time. Defences were largely on top, I think, but both ends. It was a very, very even game. Yeah. Walsall looked what they actually are, a mid-table League Two side, but we matched them. You know, we didn't look like a struggling side.
And before we go on to the second half, what were you most impressed about with Duke McKenna? I mean, he as I say, we didn't know an awful lot what to expect. We had a few QPR fans saying, he's good.
Yeah.
We weren't sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was just a bundle of energy. I mean, he got the ball, he ran with it, he took on defenders. I don't think he got particularly close to goal, but he was setting up teammates, and you know, he was pinning their right back back in his half. So again, taking the pressure off our defence. So, you know, I think there's a lot more to come from him. I don't know whether he'll always be out on the left. I think we might see him in a different position in a match or two's time. We shall see. But you know, that looks, you know, a really good signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may, not saying it will, but it may have a reason why Sam had such a good game, because he had someone who was doing the tracking back and defending for him as well, and the fact he's got Nino. I did like Sam's little comment on the after-match interview where he said about I bring leadership in an older head or something like that, and I was like, oh, you're worried about a youngster, aren't you?
Yeah.
But so coming into half-time, we're 1-1. It's a fairly even game, but we're well in it, especially away from home. Were you looking forward to the second half? Were you just wanting it over? Were you desperately thinking?
No, I was looking forward to it. I thought, as I said, it was an even game, but I thought we got a chance of getting a winner. We didn't in the end, but you know, we could have snatched a winner. They could have done.
Yeah.
So you know, I didn't have any major qualms. I thought it looked as if we'd probably get at least a point from the game at half time, and that obviously is the way it turned out.
Yeah. He made his subs. He mentioned to Tony, I'm going to mention the interview later, that he thought we were probably overthinking the timing of the substitutions, but it's been an odd time really of that 55 minutes or something, just 10 minutes after half time. It's like, might as well have done it at half time. But again, it was substitutes. It was clearly going for it. Josh and Amari are certainly more attacking than they are defending. So did you think at that point we're having a proper go here, or were you like, oh Christ, hang on a minute?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, Stephen McKenna had a very good half, but you know, if you bring Amari Patrick on, you know, particularly against tiring defenders, you know, there's always a chance he's going to, you know, work a bit of magic, and he was a bit more direct than Duke McKenna, a bit more pacey, but you know, he was causing him a different sort of problem. Whereas on the other flank, when the new guy Dion Moore, I thought we did okay. He didn't catch the eye in the way that Duke McKenna did, but he didn't look out of place in a League Two match, given that he'd stepped up from the Isthmian League.
He didn't catch the eye. So he didn't catch the eye impressively, and he didn't catch the eye. God, what have we done?
He didn't give the ball away cheaply. He put some crosses in. You know, I don't think he's going to be a frequent starter, but you know, he didn't look out of place, as I said, and he didn't look in any way a deficient signing. So he did okay, but Josh Coley, I think, as on the other flank, gave their defence something a bit different to worry about. A bit more direct, a bit more pacey, and I think it was him that their keeper again tried to sort of rob the ball off, and ended up the ball going out for a throw in. And this is quite near the end of the game, and the keeper got blocked for delaying the throw in. So he was causing them some problems. But you know, I think the balls into the box were nearly always met by defenders at both ends. So there wasn't really the end product that approach played perhaps promised.
But there could be in a few games' time.
Fingers crossed.
So it was fairly even. Both teams had some chances. I'd say watching it back, they had probably the better of the chances. One in particular had Dino scrambling. I'm not entirely sure how much he meant it, but the overhead kick kind of had Dean scrambling. Was that the far end to you or your end?
That was the far end. Yeah.
Okay. Were you worried? Did you see it? Did you?
I wasn't sure it was actually on target. It was a speculative shot. I mean, Dino managed to get to it. I couldn't take any chances with it, but I said to somebody next to me, I'm not sure that was on target, but he couldn't take the chance. I had a look at the match stats. I think each side had 10 shots in the game, and they had 4 on target, and we had 2 on target. And it was equal in terms of corners as well. I think it was four corners each. And in terms of possession, it was, I think, 51-49 in their favour. So those stats suggest to you that it was very tight, even game. And that was certainly the impression I had watching it. Yeah, there wasn't much between the sides.
No, and sort of coming to the end of it, there was another chance for one of their players bombing through, and Christian had to take the yellow. Which he did very manfully, and just like, I know this is happening. But that's kind of you're expecting that one there. But as you said, it was an even match and a point each. Now, with that, it's unbeaten in 3 for Steve, unbeaten for us. However, that's without a win in 5. Are the draws enough to build a base from, or is it are the lack of wins a concern? I know there's lots of people saying we need to be turning these into wins, but we're turning the losses into draws.
I think that's probably a fair comment. I mean, the 3 fixtures that we've drawn under Steve were quite difficult looking fixtures. We played 2 of the top 4, 1 home, 1 away, and then another away game against a side that had been in decent form recently. So I think to get 3 points, 3 draws from those 3 games is a respectable outcome. But it's given us a platform. But we do need to start building wins on that platform now. Obviously, we've got 2 games coming up, 2 home games coming up, and I think everybody is of the mind that we need to win at least one of those, ideally both of them, to start closing that gap.
Yeah, I mean. So, Ryan, I think, posted up the football web pages, predicted league table at the end of last week. And it had us losing to Walsall and being safe on 41 points. And then I thought, I wonder what it will say now after we got a draw. And after the draw, it's got us safe on 44 points. So I'm not sure how a draw instead of a loss gets us an extra 3 points. But it says that we're still 2 points clear. Obviously, these things are just, I don't even know how to work it out, to be honest with you. But
it's some sort of algorithm, isn't it? Which possibly needs tinkering with. But I think it takes into account the remaining fixtures.
It must be all the stats for what's happened so far. But how do you think this result's going to kind of sit in our end of season review? Is it going to be just another game in a sequence of a good run?
It very much depends what happens afterwards. Either it's going to be promising signs here, building a platform, and we don't go on to then build on that platform, or it's a bit of a false dawn. We shall see. But I think we've drawn a lot of games, haven't we, since October? I've not counted them up, but I think we've probably drawn around half our league games since the beginning of November. So, we need to start, as the saying goes, need to start turning draws into wins.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's early days, only 3 games. He hasn't even had his sort of main striker to call upon yet. But Steve, I would say, has seen pretty much everyone, I think, who's available to him. Do we think that he is going to be the type of person that will chop and change each week, or do you think once he he has his formation or has his players? Will he stick with it? Is he just feeling people out at the moment?
I think he is, as you say, feeling people out. He's giving all the players in the squad a chance to show him what they can do, because there's only so much you can tell from seeing players in training. It's only by seeing them actually play that you can form a firmer judgment about, how good they're going to be in your team, whether you want to play them regularly or just keep them on the fringe of the squad. So I think we will start to see the squad or the starting 11 being a little bit more settled once we get into February. That said, the distinct impression I have is that Steve is a lot more flexible than Matt. Matt was very much wedded to his 4-4-2 and his substitutions on there was at the 70th minute or whatever. And I think Steve is going to be a lot less predictable, which is going to be more of a headache for opposition managers, because certainly at the moment and maybe through the season, the rest of the season, they're not going to be sure how we're going to set up. And I think Steve probably quite likes keeping the opposition managers guessing and being flexible, so changing things a bit from game to game.
Yeah, I mean, it is an odd thing that we had all the players and we joke around that all the players can play in different positions, and yet we didn't use that to our advantage of switching up tactics while we're on during a match, because you've got things like you can put Ryan at right wing, Ryan at right back, and so on. But on the keeping things guessing, the interviews. Obviously, I've got a vested interest in his interviews. So, it's a difficult one because obviously he doesn't have to do the interviews. B, Tony doesn't have to do the interviews, but it's an odd one because he obviously doesn't want to give too much away. You're not going to be wanting the opposition to get a glimmer of, like you mentioned about Ben. You don't want people knowing that Ben won't play.
Yeah, sure.
Because that gives him a small advantage. I remember talking to John ages ago, and he said he'll do things like troll players' social media accounts and see if they can get any hints of if they've gone away for the weekend or something. They're like, right, well, he's not playing, so we know that. But from my point of view, whilst there are lots of people saying, "Oh, he can be silent, he can do whatever he likes as long as he keeps us in the division and keeps winning," all very well and good, but don't you think he needs these interviews for the times it's not going well, for the message to get across to the fans of what he's trying to do, what his longer term thing is, building up that relationship? Or do you just think it's a case of it'll settle down soon?
Look, I mean, I think every manager in the EFL has to give post-match interviews. I mean, it may or may not be in their contracts, but it's expected. So he must know he's got to do them. And it's always difficult balance to strike between, keeping stuff that you don't want public from the public, but at the same time being open with the fans who want to hear as much as possible about what might be going on behind the scenes. And that's a tricky balance to strike. And Steve, I think, is a little bit more guarded than his predecessors. That may gradually change over time, but his principal brief, implicit or explicit, must be to keep the club in League Two, and that's got to be the priority. And I think everything else is secondary to that. And I think relations with fans, being open with the fans, giving comprehensive interviews, we'd all love that, but it's of secondary importance. And if he thinks, rightly or wrongly, that by being more guarded, more cautious, keeping his cards close to his chest, he gives us a slightly better chance of staying up, then fair enough. I think we have to accept that. If we stay up and he's still here next season and we start the season well, different sort of environment, different background, different context, the debate may then shift. But I think at the moment, you just got to say, look, Steve, do what you think you have to keep us in the division, and we'll back you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying my luck with him, because
give it a few weeks.
Yeah. Hi, Steve. Don't know what I'm talking about, but can you answer some questions? So player ratings. I'm going to keep bashing it out for a little while longer, but it's amusing because when we were losing, people couldn't wait to put in their scores of 2s and 3s and whatnot. And now we're doing okay. It's a real struggle. I think I've got less the last two matches than I got on the first one. But we'll see. So there wasn't an awful lot on this one. But jumping ahead a little bit, we've got matches now, as we mentioned, with teams that we would hope to win. Now, I've put down teams around us, and then I had a look up, and I was like, "Oh, Harrogate are nowhere near around us." So that's a bit
they were a few months ago, but not now.
That's possibly a bit unfair. But we've got a good record against Harrogate, and it's at home. So, and then with Doncaster a little bit further ahead next weekend. Now, a lot has been said and made about, we're 7 points adrift. But if we were to win against Harrogate, we're then only 4 points adrift of Doncaster. So we could, if we won those two games, we could literally be there with the
that occurred to me, and I'm sure it's occurred to others. Obviously, Doncaster are not playing midweek, or not. I think they have got a game.
They've got Bradford in the EFL Trophy,
so they have got a game, but not a league game. So we're playing. So if we win on Tuesday and win on Saturday, we're just a point behind Doncaster. That's a cert, albeit I think having played a game more than them, and we may well close up on some other sides as well, around that 28 point mark. I think Grimsby are on 28, and I think there may be one other club on 28 as well. So the opportunity's there, and as the season gets nearer the end, these opportunities are going to become fewer and fewer and harder. So you've got to really start taking them. And I'm sure Steve realises that. Everybody around the club realises that these two home games are really important. Harrogate, slightly worryingly, on top of the form table at the moment. They've also got a very good away record. Their away record is much better than their home record. So that's a slight concern. That said, we're at home under the lights in an evening game. There won't be many fans. I think it'll be quite a small crowd anyway, but they won't have a big vocal following as most of the sides have had at our place this season. So that may help us a little bit. They won't particularly fancy trekking down to London on a cold January evening. So that might help us. And if we can win that one, the Doncaster, they're in pretty poor form at the moment. I was looking at their results. I mean, they had a good 3-0 win over MK Dons on New Year's Day, but their other results recently have been pretty poor. They lost 5-1 at home to Stockport yesterday. Okay, Stockport are a good side, as we know, but that suggests that that they're almost there for the taking. And I was reading a report of the game they played yesterday, and it said they were very vulnerable on crosses. So I hope Steve has noted that and will set up accordingly. But you take nothing for granted in football, but 6 points from those two matches would very much change the picture at the bottom end of the table.
Yeah, I mean, even obviously we don't get to pick and choose, but even if we ended up with 4 points, you'd want it to be the one against Harrogate and the 3 against Doncaster. Just call them back a bit. I mean, they've, as you say, they've got a cup quarter final, so hopefully it goes extra time and penalties, I think. So hopefully it'll go extra time and penalties. So they won't get the rest, wear them out a little bit and get through. So they've got a semi-final to worry about as well. I'd say Harrogate, they're like us. Their players aren't used to a large away backing, so I'm not sure that will worry them too much. But what might help us is, as we mentioned, we've got the far end now. So I'm sure people will be very excited to go into the far end, make a lot of noise.
Absolutely.
Get that echo. So we might find the atmosphere, even though it's a Tuesday night, might suddenly be like, wow, hang on, this is totally different to what we're used to. So we will see. But I mean, on the pitch, how do we win it? What do we need to do to sort of stifle Harrogate?
I just keep on doing what we have been doing. Playing with resilience and determination, being solid at the back. Just probably need to take a few more chances than we have been, but we might find it a little bit easier against Harrogate than against the 3 previous opponents. We haven't quite got Harry Smith back. He's back for Doncaster, isn't he?
Doncaster,
So we won't have him back. But if he's back on Saturday, he could make a difference.
Yeah.
But I think the players that we've got available on Tuesday should be good enough between them to to win the game.
Yeah. As you say, I wonder. I mean, if he's back, will Steve say, "Well, I've got to trust the players that I've had with me the whole time"? So he might say, "No, you're on the bench today, and we'll bring you on." We'll see. Interesting. But what's your prediction for Harrogate? Or stick up
Right,
prediction.
I'm going to go. I usually go for a draw, as you know, because I don't like predicting matches. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Sutton.
A 1-0 win.
It's a little bit cautious, but it's 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the code is up on the screen, so anyone wants to join in. I think Mark on the Turnstiles, Mark has had maximum for the last 2 weeks or 2 games in a row.
Right.
So we should find out what he's predicting. But I'm going to go a 2-1 win for Sutton, Alex, because I've got to be right one day. So hopefully it'll work. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Definitely, I think, I can't remember who said it. Someone on the forum said, annoyingly, they thought we were relegated and they kind of got used to that idea. But now it looks like we're going to make a real go of it, and it's no good for their heart rate. It's like this is bad news. But yeah, I've always thought we're going to be fine. I know we're at the bottom. We're at the bottom and everything, but I've always had this thing of no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I don't know why. It's the medication, I'm sure. But we're going to wrap it up there. As always, thank you for everyone for your ear attention. Yay. Sorry about the flickering screen. I still don't know what it is. Hopefully I can work it out for the next time. But hopefully it hasn't distracted from Mark saying too much. Don't forget to like and share on social media. Subscribe on your favourite podcast platforms. Start to date with the latest episodes and leave us a review while you're there. Thank you to our sponsors, Lucky Star Gin, as always. Big thank you to Mark. Thank you to listeners, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We will be back on Wednesday, and we will have Neil, who I haven't actually fact-checked that yet, where he said he's always on. We've never lost when he's on, but we'll have a little double check of that, and we'll pull him up on it. And Alex is also on, so get those questions sent in. Take care, and we will see you all soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. United!